Welcome to the Law and Crime Network. Michael Bryant here. It is another great Friday. Why? Because Good Friday was taken. We are still in Boise, Idaho for the Doomsday cult prophet trial. That's 55-year-old Chad Daybell, now facing 3 counts of first-degree murder, and he's accused of killing his former wife, Tammy, as well as his current wife's 2 children, Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow. Remember, Lori Vallow Daybell was sentenced to life in prison without parole. That was about a year ago, relating to the deaths of her kids and conspiring to murder Tammy Daybell. So both the defendant and Lori Daybell appeared to be convinced that the end of times was coming and that dark spirits were taking over the souls of various people, that they purportedly believed these dark spirits were turning people into zombies, and they had to eliminate them to save their souls. So now, before the break, we were listening to witness Melanie Gibb, critical witness in both trials. Remember, she's the former best friend of Lori Vallow. So let's listen now. This is the redirect examination of her testimony expected to end today.
Miss Gibb, we've asked you a lot of stuff from the years of 2018, 2019. Have you done your best to recall the facts?
Yes.
With regard to Lori, we talked about your relationship with her, and at times, I think you indicated you had daily contact.
Right.
And at times it was more sporadic.
Correct.
But this contact with her spanned over a period of time, correct?
Yes.
You were asked if you thought Chad believed that he could see visions. And I think you said yes, that was your understanding.
Yes.
Did Chad ever indicate to you that he had visions?
Well, he shared them publicly, so yes.
So Chad shared that he did have visions.
Yes.
You were asked yesterday about the term vibration.
Yes.
Did Chad and Lori ever use the term vibration?
Yes.
How did they use it?
They used it in a way to express their what they thought their knowledge was about being translated.
And when we talk about that, did your level in translation equate with the vibration number?
Yes.
What did they teach regarding that?
So the higher the number, the closer to the body being in a translation state.
And what did they talk about in relation to a translated state?
Your body would be changed in a way that you wouldn't have to eat or I don't know, drink, but you know, I don't know, your body's just more, I guess, stronger, powerful.
And you wouldn't need some of the things that, generally speaking, mortals or bodies need to survive. Is that fair?
Yeah, yeah.
You were also asked some about light and dark, and you were asked about energy work as well. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Is it fair to say that some people may have a glow
Judge, I'm
about
going to
them?
object. It's leading.
Sustained.
Your Honor, and I think, if I may respond.
Well, you can ask another question, but it is redirect, not recross. So that was the leading question.
I guess that's what I wanted to be heard on.
Go ahead.
I think there was some agreement to allow defense to go outside the scope of direct, and I do think questions were asked that opened this avenue.
Judge, could we approach?
That's not necessary. I'll make a ruling. There was some discussion, and to the extent that there was additional cross outside the scope of direct, then it would be appropriate for leading on your redirect, Ms. Blake, on those topics. So I'll, after reconsideration, overrule that objection because it was a topic essentially brought up anew in cross. So I will allow some leading, Ms. Blake. So go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Would it be fair to say that some people may have a glow about them?
Yes.
And is that a little bit different than the light and dark that Chad and Lori taught?
I think so.
You were asked about your communication with the prosecutors.
Yes,
And you acknowledge you had communication with the prosecutors.
that's right.
Did anything about that communication alter your memory of the events?
I'm not sure what you're saying.
Sorry, did it change what you recall from the events with Chad and Lori, your communication with the prosecutors?
Oh, no.
Did you ever personally observe Lori and Chad on the phone together?
Yes,
And were you with Lori when those conversations would happen?
yes,
Were you ever able to overhear some of the conversations?
just a little bit.
After Lori would get off the phone with Chad, would she ever tell you what they talked about?
Yes,
And when she'd tell you what they talked about, would she share with you things Chad taught or? And you were asked about in these, whether or not Chad had ever indicated to you that he intended to physically harm Tammy. And I think you said he'd never indicated that.
that's right.
And you also said he never indicated a specific intention to harm Lori's kids. Is that correct?
Yes.
Who was it that would label someone dark or a zombie again?
Chad.
And and once someone was labeled a zombie or dark, what was going to happen to their body? As Chad and Lori taught it.
If they could cast the evil spirit out, the body would naturally die.
So if someone was dark or a zombie, they were going to die.
Yes. Well, maybe. I mean, not everybody. They knew.
But that was the teaching. If the casting was successful, the body would die.
Right, right.
And JJ was labeled dark or a zombie.
Yes,
Tammy was labeled dark or a zombie.
yes,
Charles was labeled dark or a zombie.
yes,
And Tylee was labeled dark or a zombie.
yes.
You were asked about that phone call, the recording from December 8th of 2019.
Yes,
And to be clear, did law enforcement ask you to record that?
never.
Do you recall hearing Chad on there telling you that you may be in danger?
Yes,
As Lori talked, did Chad ever jump in and correct her? That you recall?
say that again.
Did Chad ever jump in to correct Lori when you were on that call?
I don't recall that.
And Chad was there with her for the call. We could hear him, correct?
Correct.
And Lori tells you JJ's okay.
Correct.
You were also asked about when Chad called you around Thanksgiving. Do you
Yes.
recall that call in 2019?
Yes.
And do you recall what Chad told you or asked you to do at that time?
He asked me not to pick up the phone when the police would call.
Do you recall asking him if JJ was with Kay?
Yes.
And what was Chad's response?
No. The answer was no.
So Chad knew he wasn't with Kay.
Yes.
When that phone call was placed to you by Chad, did you know JJ was missing at that time?
I guess, no, I didn't.
So when Chad first tells you not to talk to the police, you actually don't know JJ's been reported as missing.
Correct.
Judge. Ms. Gibb, you talked about the fact that you participated in castings, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And as part of your participation in castings, you knew the intent of what a casting was used for was to rid the body of evil spirits, correct?
Correct.
But then you just testified with the prosecuting attorney that you also knew that at successful completion of the casting, the human body would die. So You knew that when you were doing this castings that apparently you were ending the life of a human body. Isn't that correct?
I had no idea what really the result would be.
Oh,
That was
okay.
the theory.
Okay. But you just said that the purpose of castings was to, when the prosecutor asked you about that it would end the life of a human body, correct?
Objection, Your Honor, misstates the testimony, misstates the prior question from the state.
Sustain.
I'm done, Judge.
All right, that concludes the recross then. That will conclude the testimony of Ms. Gibb. I believe she's under subpoena from the defense also, but I don't know that there's nothing covered that where I allowed the extended scope of cross. Do you intend to recall her, Mr. Price?
Judge, I want to keep her under subpoena at this point because if other issues come up and I need Ms. Gibb to come back, I spoke with the prosecutor about how I can communicate with Ms. Gibb if that need arises. But at this point, I want to keep her under subpoena. I would ask the court to do an admonishment about not allowing her to view anything or talk to anybody about the case. But at this point, the final decision has not been made. And I explained that to the prosecutor, but in the event something comes up that I need to revisit that, I need to have that opportunity.
Very well. Ms. Gibb, that concludes your testimony for now. You may be recalled. Because you may be recalled and are under subpoena from the defense, I'll request and admonish you, not request, but you're admonished not to watch further trial proceedings that may be available on the live stream or to follow the case in any way until such time as you're released from the subpoena. Okay. All right.
Judge, could I also inquire that Ms. Gibb be advised about discussing her testimony or testimony with anybody else?
That's part of the admonishment. So
Judge.
that will conclude.
All right, good lesson there. Never, ever release anybody from a subpoena during the course of a trial. And obviously the defense here, just to make sure they're keeping Melanie Gibb under a subpoena. So if they're in the case in chief for the defense, they need her, boom, they got her. You don't want to have to go after somebody a second time. You lose nothing by keeping her under subpoena. So let's continue with this discussion. I've got Catherine Lizardo here. She's still here. And joining us is Dr. John Delatorre. Dr. John, I'm not sure there's a case that your skills are more appropriately matched. So let me ask you, as the jury is sitting here taking this all in, specifically the Melanie Gibb discussion, and it's a discussion of lights and dark and zombies, as if it's just, morning baseball talk or something normal. How do you think a normal jury member reads this?
Well, I think they're having a really hard time kind of with what's being said. I mean, there's a lot of nonsense that's being expressed by by this witness. But I think ultimately what I think the prosecutor was really trying to get at, and I'm not entirely sure that she really landed it all that well. But I think what she was trying to get at, and I think what the jury may want to hear if they can get rid of some of the other nonsense, is that Chad was actually sort of mentally abusing Lori. That this was a relationship in which Lori didn't have much control. That Chad ultimately was the person that was making all of the decisions. Everything that Chad wanted, that what was going to happen, right? And he was using all of these other kinds of things of seeing visions and zombies and castings and all this other stuff as a way of manipulation and control. And I think ultimately that's what the prosecutor wants the jury to hear. They just need to get past some of the other nonsense in order to get there. Yeah,
because if the line is drawn by the defense between Daybell and Vallow, then that's going to help. But I should point out, you'll never hear the prosecution, I haven't heard them say it once, say Lori Vallow Daybell. It's always Lori Vallow. Chad Daybell, different person, no connection there. So let me open up the law and crime classroom here for Professor Lizardo. Let's talk about this back and forth with redirect, recross. There was a point at which the prosecution wanted a little leeway to lead the witness with regard to a specific subject. What was that all about?
It's quite interesting because when you're doing a redirect, you're not supposed to lead the witness or ask questions that are not the 5 W's, why, what, when, where. So you should not do that. But what is interesting here is there was actually an agreement between the defense and the prosecution that during the cross-examination of the defense, they can ask a question that the prosecutor did not ask during the direct. And we saw that that's about the light and the dark and how they would become zombies. And so that's why during her redirect, she was allowed to lead the witness, because now that's something new information that the defense elicited from the witness. So technically, that's how that worked out.
Yeah, it's kind of a nuance, and you wonder sometimes why the objection is made if there was some sort of agreement. I'm not sure there's any bombshell material that came out of that redirect, which is the attempt to rehabilitate your own witness. But that's the way they handled it. Thank you, Professor. Appreciate that that explanation. Let's take a break here. When we come back, and again, Melanie Gibb dismissed for now. I predict she might be making a reappearance, as we will after this break. Stay with you.